All right, hey guys, this is a little video to help you if you want to redo any of test chapter 4. Mostly everybody did awesome on the second page. It was that first page where we were adding and subtracting integers with negative and positive signs that tripped a couple people up. So I'm going to go over this. Hopefully it's helpful. Some of the parts you might be like, yeah, I already know that. Then that's not for you. So just listen to what would be helpful, and then you can retake the test. I wrote some instructions on some of your tests, so you can just follow those and work accordingly. So first, let's talk about adding integers. So we know if the signs are the same, we're going to add the absolute value and then write the sign of the addend in the sum. So all that means is if we have two positives, our answer is going to be positive. You guys have been doing adding since kindergarten probably, so that's nothing new. Everybody got that fine. Where we kind of messed up, a couple of people did, is when we were adding negative numbers. You did the adding fine, but some people forgot that when you add negative numbers, you get a bigger negative. So I was getting like an answer of negative 9 plus negative 7 equals, and then you would tell me the answer was 16. And that would be like saying, you had a debit card, you went to the store, you spent $9 on donuts at Krispy Kreme, so that would be a negative 9 came out of your bank account, and then you went to Starbucks and you bought a drink there. That was another negative $7 from your bank account, and then you came home and your mom said, hey, I looked at the bank account and you added $16 to your bank account. She wouldn't say that. She would say, hey, I saw that you spent or you subtracted $16. So when you add negative numbers, negative plus a negative equals a bigger negative. Don't forget that negative sign. The difference between a negative 16 and a positive 16 is huge in real life. So we got to make sure we're marking those accordingly. Okay, so what if we have unlike signs? We're adding numbers with unlike signs. So what do we do here? We find the difference of the absolute values, which means we subtract the two numbers, and then we write the sign of the integer with the greater absolute value. So that means whatever number was bigger, we give the answer that sign. So here we have negative 9 plus 3. Negative 9, so we're going to subtract. We're going to find the difference between 9 and 3. That's 6. What sign are we going to give it? Is it going to be a negative or positive 6? We need to look back here. Which number has the greater absolute value? Remember, absolute value means how many digits is it away from the 0 on the number line. So you can take the negative off the 9 and know that 9 has a greater absolute value. It's farther away from the 0 on the number line, and the 9 has a negative sign, so our answer also has to have a negative. Let's see if I can hold the camera and do this. Okay, let's look at this one. A negative 4 plus 12. We're going to find the difference between those two numbers. The difference between 12, so minus 4, is 8. And then is that one going to be negative or positive? Remember, we're going to give it the sign of the number with the greatest absolute value. So what has the greatest absolute value? Negative 4, which becomes 4. The absolute value is 4, and the absolute value of 12 is 12. So the greater absolute value is 12, and the sign for that is a positive 12. So 8 is going to be a positive 8. Okay, let's talk about subtracting integers. So when we subtract a negative and a positive number, we add the opposite. So let's look at this problem. We have negative 7 minus 7. So we're going to add the opposite. Negative 7, add, and don't get confused because this means you're subtracting a positive 7. So now we're going to add a negative. See, opposite, we add negative. So this was a positive 7. They don't ever put the plus sign there because that's assumed that you know that. So it looks like that. Okay, so we add the opposite. So we know that when we add two negative numbers together, remember we talked about that, you went and you made two purchases on your debit card. Now your bank account is negative 14. You've taken $14 out of your bank account. It's negative. So That's how you do that one. Let's look at one where it's an equation where we're solving y minus 6 equals negative 19. So here, this one, we're taking away 6, so we need to isolate the variable. So we're going to determine what operation was done, which was subtraction, and we're going to do the opposite. Oh, let's do something though. Let's make this a negative 6. So we're subtracting a negative 6 to get a negative 19. So we know the opposite of subtraction is addition. So we're going to add, I'm going to write this equation again. It's y minus a negative 6. And now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to add a negative 6 to this side equals negative 19. And we're going to add a negative 6 to this side. Okay. Now this is where some of you guys went wrong on the test. You forgot, you did the opposite. You did the addition, but you forgot that this number was originally negative 6. So the opposite is addition, but we needed to keep it as a negative 6. So we need to add negative 6 to each side. Okay, so adding negative 6 and subtracting negative 6 gets rid of all those. And then we have y, and then over here, we have negative 19 plus negative 6. So here we're adding two negatives together, get us to a bigger negative. So y equals, what's 19 plus 6? 25, and we're not going to forget the negative sign, 25. All right, hopefully that is helpful. Okay, one final thing that I want to make sure you guys know is when you're multiplying integers together and they're negative and positive, let's just go over this. So I think most of you guys know if we multiply a negative and a positive, we get a negative. Negative 2 times 6 equals negative 12. If we multiply a negative and a negative, we get a positive. And if we multiply a positive and a positive, we get a positive. So a negative times a positive equals a negative times a negative equals a positive. A few of you, when you did your multiplying, you did it fine, but you forgot that negative times a positive equals a negative. And that might also be what may have tripped up some of you when you were adding, you were thinking about multiplying, because when you multiply two negatives, you get a positive. But when you add two negatives, you get a bigger negative. So your answer stays negative with adding, and it goes to positive with multiplying. So think about that. Here's something to remember. The odd number of negatives multiplied together will give you a negative answer. So we have one negative, that's an odd number of negatives, we got a negative answer. Here we have two negatives, that's a even number of negatives, so we get a positive answer. And here we don't have any negatives, so we get a positive. Okay.